Good morning, friends. The subject of my talk this morning is characteristics of saints. Who is a saint? Well, all the theistic scriptures and the scriptures which believe in God say that God is omnipresent. God is present everywhere. Yes, God is present everywhere, but God is not manifest everywhere. Like in the non-living objects like chairs, tables, and so on, God is equally present, but there is no manifestation. But in living beings, God's manifestation is a little more. And in human beings, God's manifestation is so much more. So human beings are like so many light bulbs. If we consider light as divinity, then there are so many light bulbs. They manifest divinity differently, depending upon the quality of their minds. If their minds are pure, then there will be manifestation of divinity. And if the mind is even more pure, then there will be more manifestation of divinity. That's how it goes. So people therefore are like so many light bulbs. Some are like 10-watt light bulbs, some are like 20-watt light bulbs, some are like 100-watt light bulbs. And then there are some which are 1000-watt light bulbs. That is, so much more divinity is being manifested. And such a person will be considered a saint, or she is saintly. He or she is saintly. And then there are some extraordinary light bulbs, multi-trillion watt light bulbs. And that the manifestation is maximum. And such light bulbs are called divine incarnations. Divine incarnations are very few and far between. In every age there may be only one or two divine incarnations. Jesus was a divine incarnation. In the past, Rama, Krishna, they were divine incarnation. Then a time came when Sri Chaitanya was a divine incarnation. He came a few hundred years ago. And then for the present age, and then Jesus I already mentioned, then in the present age the divine incarnations are Ramakrishna and Sri Sarada Devi. These are the divine incarnations. You see the picture of Sri Ramakrishna behind me. This is the first time that a photograph of any divine incarnation could be taken. So saints are like 1000-watt light bulbs or even 1500-watt light bulbs. So in the 19th century, there was a saint in India, North India. His name was Ramdas Kathia Baba. Kath means wood. The saints of his order used to wear wooden belts. There will be wooden belts around their waist. That's why they will be called Kathia. And Ramdas Kathia Baba was a genuine saint. He used to say that it is very difficult to recognize a genuine saint because they are like the teeth of an elephant. An elephant has two kinds of teeth. One is the tusks. The other teeth are inside the mouth to chew food and eat that food. The tusks are there outside, which other people can see. But they are not used to chew food. So also people see the saints, they see the tusks only, they don't see the inner teeth. By seeing the tusks, they think they have judged a saint. But that's not how you judge a saint. By seeing the outer appearance of a saint, you won't recognize a saint. And there was Sri Chaitanya, whom I mentioned as one of the divine incarnations. He wrote some words in Sanskrit. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi saishnuna amanina manodena kirtaneya sada harihi. So these are the symptoms of a true devotee or a true saint. They have humility, they have endurance, and they have no craving for honor or respect. But they are givers of honors to others. And mentally they always chant the holy name of God. These are the signs of a true devotee of God or a saint, as indicated by the divine incarnation Sri Chaitanya. Yes, I will talk about these things a little later, but a saintly soul has willingness to serve others. Others as the manifestation of divinity. So there is I'd call it a story or an incident. A saint was taking bath in the holy river Ganga or Ganges. The river Ganges has its source up in the Himalayas. Then it comes down to the plains of India. And there is a place called Haridwar. It is a holy place. And Haridwar means the door to divinity. Anyway, that place is there. There the river has come down and has started flowing on the flat northern Indo-Gangetic plains of India. And the river Ganga or Ganges is considered a holy river according to the tradition of Hinduism. And so those rivers are considered holy. That's why people would come and take bath in such rivers and feel that they've made their bodies holy. And to come down to the water of the river, they make some steps which lead to the deeper water of the river. Those are called ghats. So people use these ghats to go down to the river and they take their bath in the holy river. One day it was seen that a sadhu, sadhu means a monk, was taking bath in that river. And the sadhu saw a scorpion floating in water. It is about to drown. The scorpion lives on land. Somehow it had slipped into water. It was going to drown. And that sadhu, that monk, he tried to take that scorpion out of water and put it on the land. And when he tried to do that, the scorpion stung his hand. Then his hand shook and the scorpion again fell down into water. This happened 3 times or so. And every time it fell down into water, this monk would take that out by his hand to put it on the bank of the river. And eventually he was able to do it. Another person who was there taking a bath in that holy river watched the monk's performance, and then he asked the monk, "Revered sir, why did you try to save that scorpion? It stung you 3 times. Then the monk said, "Sir, the monks, it is the duty of the monk to serve others. As the manifestation of divinity. And it is the nature of scorpions to sting when they are afraid. So even though the scorpion was about to die, it didn't give up its nature. And I am a monk. Why should I give up my nature? I should try to save that scorpion." So, willingness to serve others is a sign of saintliness. And a saint thinks that he or she is serving God. Not only that, some of them who are more elevated, they feel that it is God who is using their bodies and minds to do God's work. So there was a Swami named Swami Nigamananda. He was giving a discourse to some devotees of God. And at the end of the discourse, the devotees who were there, who had heard the discourse, they applauded by clapping their hands. And then Swami Nigamananda also started clapping his hand as though to applaud. his discourse. Anyway, Swami Nigamananda had a young disciple, a monk. That monk later on asked Swami Nigamananda, "Revered sir, you also clapped your hands to applaud your lecture. I don't understand why you did that." Then Nigamananda Swami said, "You see, why should I not do it? I could see God giving the talk. The talk was good, so that's why I applauded." And there was a saintly monk in the Ramakrishna order, Swami Ramakrishnananda. He was one of the main disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, the Divine Incarnation. Swami Ramakrishnananda was in South India. He was attached to one of these centers of the Ramakrishna order there. And he had to give somewhere from that center and give talks on certain days of the week, discourses. One day he went to give the discourse, but there was no one in the hall to listen to his talk. Still he gave the discourse, which lasted for about an hour, and then he came back. One of the junior monks who came to know about this asked Swami Ramakrishnananda, "Revered sir, you gave the talk, but there was no one there. There was no audience. And he gave the talk." Then he said, "Yes, what of that? I give a talk as my service to Sri Ramakrishna. That's it. It is not for people. It is my service to Sri Ramakrishna." So this is how saints behave. Swami Ramakrishnananda was saying that his talks are given for Sri Ramakrishna. And there was another great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna like Swami Brahmananda. He was a saint. He was at that time the president of the Ramakrishna order, and he was at the headquarters of the Ramakrishna order, which is in a place called Belur Monastery near Calcutta, Belur Mutt. And then some young men had joined the monastery, and Swami Premananda, another saintly disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, used to supervise them. One of those young men had a little short temper, and then Swami Premananda took that young monk to Swami Brahmananda. Swami Brahmananda was in his room, seated on his cot. And Swami Premananda went to him and said, and they would call Swami Brahmananda Raja Maharaj. "Raja Maharaj, this young man has a short temper. Will you please put your hand on his head and bless him in order that his temper changes and he develops cool temper?" And Swami Brahmananda put his hand on that young monk's head and blessed him. And Swami Premananda was a connoisseur of spirituality. He immediately went out of that room and started calling others. "Come, Swami Brahmananda has been blessing." Usually he would not bless anybody, Swami Brahmananda. Monks, saintly monks think that they don't bless anybody, it is God who blesses. But anyway, so hearing his call, some monks who were nearby, they one by one they started coming to Swami Brahmananda and started saluting him. And he blessed everyone by putting his hand on that monk. At last, one or two arrived, they were late in coming. And when they saluted Swami Brahmananda, hoping to be blessed by him, Swami Brahmananda stood up. He was no longer seated. And he said, I can't bless anymore. Jo aaya tha so chala gaya. One who came is gone now, he said. Jo aaya tha so chala gaya is in Hindi. That means that one who blessed you is gone now. That means it was God who blessed these monks using my body and mind. This is the attitude. And I said that humility is a great quality of genuine saints. Excuse me. So Sri Ramakrishna, when he was there, and then a person named Keshav Chandra Sen was a leader of a Hindu organization called Brahma Samaj. But anyway, and he was a very good speaker, Keshav Chandra Sen. And many people would come to listen to his talk and became members of that organization, Brahma Samaj. And one day Keshav Chandra Sen came with some of his followers. He had come to know Ramakrishna and was a little attracted to him. And they came to him and with some of his followers and said to Sri Ramakrishna, pointing to the followers, they say, I am Jesus Christ, then are you John the Baptist? And Sri Ramakrishna said with his folded hands, said, no, I am the dust of your feet. Such humility. Sri Ramakrishna never thought that he was a teacher. So also was Jesus Christ. He never thought that he was a teacher. People say Jesus Christ had so many disciples, but he would consider them as his brothers, not his disciples. After his resurrection, two Marys came to see him. They had come to anoint his dead body. They thought he had died. But he had entered into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and when the body appears to be dead. But then again, when his body was put into the grotto, he came back from Samadhi. He came out. But those people in Israel at that time did not know Nirvikalpa Samadhi or anything. That's why God incarnated there, to rejuvenate spirituality. And then, after coming out from the grotto, he put on a disguise, otherwise he would be again arrested and crucified. He knew that. So that's why he put on the disguise of a gardener. And so when he saw those two ladies whom he knew well, he talked to them. Then they could recognize that this gardener was Jesus Christ. And then he said to them, go and tell my brothers that I will see them in Galilee. Galilee is a place in Israel. So I will see them in Galilee. Tell my brothers. He didn't say, go and tell my disciples. So he never thought that he was a spiritual teacher. Once he was there with some of his companions, and his companions brought a man who was born blind to him and said, "Why is this man blind, born blind? Is it due to his own fault or due to the fault of his parents?" At that time, the Jews used to believe in reincarnation. Much later, one Roman emperor who had become a follower of Jesus Christ banned the idea of reincarnation. That's why nowadays they don't believe in reincarnation. But at that time they believed. And Jesus did not give any reply. He touched the eyes of that blind man, and that man regained eyesight. Then he said, it is not due to his own sins that he was born blind, or nor was it the case that it is due to his parents' sins he was born blind. His blindness was there to glorify God. Glorify God means that the power which cured that person's blindness using Jesus' hand or body was God's power. So God was responsible. Jesus didn't think that he had cured the blindness of a person. He had humility. And there were two Swamis in our order. One is Swami Shankarananda and another is Swami Vishuddhananda. Swami Shankarananda at that time was the president of the Ramakrishna order of monks. And Swami Vishuddhananda was a very senior monk and renowned for his spirituality. But many devotees wanted to have spiritual initiation from Swami Shankarananda. At that time only the president of our order used to give spiritual initiation to devotees. That Swami Shankarananda had become old, elderly. So he called Swami Vishuddhananda and said to him, "From now on you have to give spiritual initiation to devotees also." And Swami Vishuddhananda said, "I cannot do that. I cannot play the role of a guru or anything." Yes, he had humility. Then Swami said, "I'm not fit to be a guru, or I'm not fit to give initiation." Then Swami Shankarananda said, "Yes, neither you nor I am not fit to give initiation also. But Sri Ramakrishna, whom they considered as God, loves to play with Kana Kauri." Kana Kauri. In those days, the lowest currency in ancient India was seashells. And had a seashell developed a hole in it, it would be useless. And that would be called Kana Kauri. So Sri Ramakrishna wants to play with seashells. We are worthless, but he wants to play with us. We are not fit to be gurus or anything. That's what Swami Shankarananda said to Swami Vishuddhananda. They did not have any ego. They were both humble because they were saints. And once a person, he did not recognize a saint, but the saint was wearing the robe of a monk and came to him and said, and he wanted to insult him. "You are a donkey," he said. And a donkey is considered a very foolish animal in India. So that's why you see, sometimes the teachers in schools would call a student a donkey because he was not that bright enough. So a person came to that holy man and said, "You are a donkey." You wanted to insult that holy man. And the saint said, "Hush, hush, let me see if there is a donkey around. If the donkey is here nearby, then if the donkey hears you calling a donkey, the donkey will feel insulted because I am much worse than a donkey. I am much worse than a donkey. The donkey may feel insulted if you call me a donkey," he said. That holy man said. So, this is how the saints behave. Then we have in Hinduism has 6 systems of religious philosophy. And one of them is called Sankhya system. According to Sankhya system, how the world came to be there. Before the creation of this world, there was divinity, isn't it? But they say that there was Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha means consciousness in the form of divinity. And there was Mother Nature called Prakriti. And Mother Nature was unconscious and extremely fine and composed of 3 substances called gunas. Sattva guna, Raja guna and Tama guna. Mother Nature is like a rope, and she entwined by these 3 gunas, and each guna is like a string. And Sattva guna gives purity of mind, calmness and all this when it becomes predominant. These 3 gunas are always wrestling with one another. And when Sattva guna becomes predominant, then that person becomes calm and meditative. And then when Raja guna becomes predominant, it goes to the top. Then it becomes vigorous and it becomes egoistic also. And when Tama guna becomes predominant, because they are always wrestling like 3 siblings. So when that becomes good to the top, then a person becomes lazy, foolish and all that. Then Prakriti became this entire world, including us. Prakriti first borrowing consciousness from the source of consciousness, which is called Purusha. First started evolving. And the first evolved form of Prakriti was the cosmic mind. And when the mind came, then in the mind the senses came and all that. And those senses and all, they eventually became this entire universe. And Prakriti became very fine, subtle substance called Tanmatra. And all whatever is there in this world is a product of Prakriti. So they are composed of 3 gunas also. So this very subtle essence which came out of Prakriti, they also have these 3 gunas. Then Tanmatras come out from the bodies of people. But those whose Tanmatras have preponderance of Sattva guna, they are very pure and holy. And these saints have this pure and holy Tanmatras always coming out of them. they have the power to influence others also. These tanmatras, pure tanmatras. So, we read that a sinner woman who had committed adultery had been brought to Jesus Christ, and then some people were there, because in those days anybody would commit adultery, or any woman. There was a male-dominated society, it looks like. So the man was not being punished, but the woman was being punished. And so many people were there with rocks in their hands. They would throw the rocks at the woman and kill her. But they came to Jesus Christ. And Jesus said to one of them, if there is anyone among you who has not committed any sin, let that person be the first one to throw the rock at this woman. That's strange. That person dropped the rock and went away. One by one, all of them left. What made it possible? What made those people change their minds? While it is the pure and holy tanmatras coming out of Jesus which must have done that, I'm sure of it. And Swami Vishuddhananda was a saint. And once the Queen of Nepal visited our monastery in our headquarters, which is Belur Math, and wanted to see Swami Vishuddhananda. She had heard of Swami Vishuddhananda's saintliness. And then she sat in a room in front of Swami Vishuddhananda. After saluting him, she sat there. She had been going through some kind of sadness due to some happenings in Nepal, because she was Queen of Nepal. She sat there and did not say anything to Swami Vishuddhananda. She sat there for a while sometimes. Then she said, now my mind has become calm. And she came out of that room. What transformed the mind of the Queen of Nepal? The pure tanmatras of Swami Vishuddhananda did that. And saintly souls don't have false ego. Swami Bhuteshananda was one of our presidents. When he was made president, then some people would come to him to have spiritual initiation, etc. And he would initiate them, thinking that he was an instrument of Sri Ramakrishna. But anyway, one day, I was present there at that time. He was walking in the inner porch of the house where he used to stay at that time as president. He had one or two attendants. Then he saw me, he knew me since I was a child. And then he said, pointing to himself, he said, now people call me president, but I think I am the same monk which I was 50 years ago. The position of the president did not affect him at all. And saintly souls also have, they are truthful. It is said that if a person is truthful for 12 years, whatever comes out of that person's mouth becomes true. So, I could have given several examples of that, but I will choose Swami Krishnatmananda. our order has a branch in Shillong in Assam, and I was then a young monk of the Shillong ashram. Then I went with another Swami to give relief to some people in an area in Assam. Called Kamrup district or Kamrup county. And then the relief had been given, and we had to go by bus first and then by train and then arrive at the place where we had to give relief. And then when we were about to depart, there are some suitcases and all. And then one Swami, he was Swami Krishnatmananda, he was coming from our headquarters, and he had been posted to the Shillong center. And he had heard that we had been conducting relief there. And he came, he had come by train, third class, as all monks do. And then he came to us and he said, "Oh, your relief is over now. So you have to go back to Shillong center." He said, "Yes." Then he said, "It would be nice if someone comes with a car and takes us all and our baggage and everything to Shillong." Then the other Swami who was there with me, his name was Swami Hridyananda, he said, "It is impossible. Who will come and take us there?" But no. In a few minutes, a gentleman came. His name was Shamapada Chaudhuri. Shamapada Chaudhuri, he was the chief engineer of the State Electricity Board. He had heard, he was a devotee of the Ramakrishna order. He had heard about the relief work that we had been conducting there in Kamrup county. And he came and he saw that our work had been done already. Then he said, "And we are getting ready to go back to Shillong." Then he said, No, you come to my car. I will take you all to Shillong." So we all came by car to Shillong. We didn't have to go by train, and then train we had to go to a place called Guwahati, and then from there by more than 60 miles by bus to Shillong. But Shamapada Chaudhuri took us. So Swami Krishnatmananda just casually commented that it will be nice if someone comes and takes us to Shillong by his car. And that happened. Other incidents also I know, but I don't want to mention them today. Then about Swami Krishnatmananda. And then some people think that saints must have occult power. They must have the power to perform miracles. This is not true. Because from our religion we know that having occult powers won't make a person more saintly. And by the will of God, I had to visit Brazil 7 times on invitation from Seattle. And during one of my visits, it was summer, I was in the capital of Brazil called Brasilia city. And that is summer season there. The sky was blue, it was very hot. And those of us who were there, were suffering from that heat physically. Then I was staying in a temple, and some children were playing in the temple. Suddenly a thought came to my mind. I asked one of the children to come. I said, "Do you want rain to come?" Then the child said, yes, yes, yes. He said, when? He said, now. He said, no, not now. Let the rain come in the evening. Then do one thing, go to the shrine and pray to God and ask God to give rain in the evening. Then those children went to the shrine and they took 1 minute to say that prayer and came out. And they went home. It is strange that when I said those things to that, they said that to the boy, it was noontime. And then suddenly wind started blowing and from somewhere clouds came and then in the evening it started raining heavily. It rained so heavily that there was a little water on the street. Then the following morning, the father of one of those children came to me and said, Swami, when the rain came last evening, and my son was saying, we prayed to God for rain, that's why God has given us rain. Isn't it wonderful? He said. And they thought that I had the occult power to bring rain. Had nothing to do with it. Why God gave me the thought to ask the boys to go and pray to the shrine? I think God wanted that those children should have belief in prayer, faith in prayer. That's why I think that has happened. But still the people of Brasilia, they think that I have the occult power, I can bring rain. I cannot bring rain or anything. So, judging by occult power, one should not try to recognize a saint. Thank you all for your patience. May God bless us all.